Well, it probably began to be apparent when the buildup was announced in late 2009. And during the same speech in which the buildup was announced, the date for the drawdown was announced as well. Of course, we didn't know how fast the drawdown would be, didn't really have any details about how substantial the initial drawdown and then how long the withdrawal of the so-called surge forces would be. But that was, again, where I think there was a recognition that this is not the kind of strategic commitment that will lead the Taliban to come to the negotiating table. The fact is that we rightly recognize that we could not win. This is a completely different battlefield than that of Iraq, where we drove violence down by 85% during the surge. It actually kept going down further during the 3.5 years of our withdrawal. And it was not our withdrawal that undid Iraq. It was the actions of the prime minister of Iraq immediately after our withdrawal that tore the fabric of society once again that we had helped to knit back together during this surge. And they then took their eye off the Islamic State. And of course, you know what followed. And we had to go back in to help them defeat the Islamic State and eliminate its caliphate. In Afghanistan, the problem was, again, the sanctuaries. And if an enemy has sanctuaries to which he can retreat, you can never truly bring that group to battle in the way that you would, and never truly put the kind of pressure on it that you'd like to achieve at least reconciliation with the lower ranks. But having said that, yes, we could not win in the sense that perhaps arguably during the surge, you might say that that was the case. But we could have managed. The alternative that I thought last year was still very viable was one that was sustainable in terms of the expenditure of blood and treasure. Let's face it, we had not had an American soldier killed in battle for 18 months prior to that tragic suicide bombing at Kabul International Airport. And it wasn't just because of the agreement in Doha. It was that we were no longer on the front lines. We were providing advice, assistance, and enabling. So the enabling being drones, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance assets, intelligence fusion, and close air support when needed, plus the logistical and maintenance and other support that the Afghans desperately needed as well, including that for their aircraft. As the coalition forces, keep in mind, we only had 3,000 to 3,500 troops. The coalition had 8,500. Most of them, if not all, wanted to stay. They were doing the training and equipping mission, the equipping largely being done still with US funded programs. And then, of course, the maintenance personnel. And that was enough to keep the country going. Yes, the security situation had eroded, but I'm not one who thinks that the Taliban could have launched this simultaneous offensive and not been repulsed had we been there. The Afghan forces could have sent the reinforces, close air support, resupplies, aerial medevac, and we could have augmented that as necessary. Plus, of course, that enabled us to have the bases in Afghanistan that enabled the counterterrorism mission to ensure that Al-Qaeda could not reestablish its sanctuary and to ensure that the Islamic State affiliate could not become more dangerous, not just in Afghanistan, but in the region as well. Keeping in mind that, of course, the operation that brought Osama bin Laden to justice was launched from eastern Afghanistan, went into Abbottabad, Pakistan, and then returned to Afghanistan. So those bases were very, very helpful and very useful. We have shown that we can conduct over the horizon operations. The masterful strike that brought Ayman al-Zawahiri to justice is a very good example of that. But that takes a lot of resources. Instead of taking off in a base in Afghanistan and immediately going into your orbit or within minutes finding your orbit, now you have to fly for perhaps 60% of the blade time just to get to the orbit and get back, assuming that the bases are some distance from Afghanistan.
I wonder if you feel like there has been too hard a line between troops on the ground and this kind of modern warfare using drones, precision strikes from a distance, and actually there should have been some overlap, some synergy between the two.
Well, there is synergy. I mean, this is the construct. This is what we are doing in other locations. This is what we're doing in northeastern Syria. I think the administration rightly put forces back into Somalia. Small elements, special operations forces, perhaps some intelligence capabilities to enable. And again, the idea here, the description of the mission is advise, assist, and enable, and also some training and equipping. But the training and equipping typically is in a rear area that is not dangerous. The advise, assist, and enable typically is with a headquarters that's not on the front lines. This is how we enabled the Iraqi security forces to defeat the Islamic State, the army as it was at least, and to eliminate its caliphate. Yes, there are still Islamic State terrorists and extremists, cells, and some insurgents, but the Iraqi security forces, with some very modest assistance, can keep an eye on that. This is how we enable the Syrian Democratic Forces to eliminate the Islamic State Caliphate in northeastern Syria. This is what we're doing in Somalia. It's what we're doing in North Africa. It's what we're doing in West Africa. These are, again, we aren't going to win any of these with that strategy. It will be up to the host nation forces and whether they can ever get the kind of leadership really at the political level, not just the military level, that can resolve the issues. But surely it is better to manage those situations than to withdraw and see them collapse completely and perhaps become the kind of failed state or ungoverned space that can be exploited by Islamist extremists. And this was my contention with Afghanistan. And this is, to be fair to this administration, this is the only place where they have done that. And also, to be fair, I think they're doing a very impressive job leading our allies and partners around the world in responding to the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine, and also in imposing very stiff sanctions, financial, economic, personal, on the Russian economy and Putin's inner circle, as well as export controls that restrict microchips to Russia and so forth, and have brought their military industry to its knees. I think they've also done an impressive job in a variety of other ways, typically working with allies and partners to create a comprehensive, integrated, whole of governments approach for the most important relationship in the world, which is that with China, and a variety of other locations around the world where we are active. Afghanistan, sadly, we did not adopt that advise, assist, enable concept, which also would have allowed the kind of basis for the important counter-terrorist operations that we have seen we still need to carry out.